Medical device registration costs and timelines for Brazil, Mexico, and Colombia. Entering new international markets is a critical growth strategy for medical device and IVD companies, but it comes with a price tag. From government fees and required translations to consulting, ongoing representation, and post-market expenses, it's important to consider the bigger picture. Accurately estimating how much it will cost and how long it will take can help you align your global strategy with your budget and business objectives. This guide provides a detailed look at cost and timelines in the three largest Latin American markets: Brazil, Mexico, and Colombia, so you can avoid potentially overpaying for services and plan a successful market entry project. Medical device and IVD registration costs and timelines in Brazil. Brazil is the largest country in Latin America with a population of more than 210 million. Only 31% of the medical devices registered in Brazil are manufactured locally. The rest come mainly from China, the USA, and Europe. Brazil's medical device regulator is the National Health Surveillance Agency, also known as Anvisa, Agência Nacional de Vigilância Sanitária. Foreign manufacturers must appoint an in-country representative, license holder, to manage the registration process and communicate with Anvisa. The new procurement law has expanded access for international companies to participate in public tenders. However, the product must be registered in Brazil through an in-country representative. Costs. Registration costs are primarily influenced by device class and BGMP, Brazilian GMP, certification status. For Class 1, 2 notifications, when using an in-country representative, the cost to compile and submit to Anvisa ranges from $1,000 to $2,000, government fees and translation costs included, per notification depending on the number of notifications. The average cost per notification typically decreases if you are notifying multiple devices. For Class 3, IV registrations, the submission and approval process is more complicated. The total cost to compile and submit to Anvisa ranges from $4,000 to $6,000 per registration for most products, including government fees and translation costs. In addition, a $13,500, 72.804 Brazilian reals, 90, Anvisa fee must be paid for BGMP certification per manufacturer. When registering an electrical device, in-metro testing and certification is required. Estimated cost $4,000 to $6,000, and for devices that use wireless technologies, Anatel certification may apply. Estimated cost $3,000 to $4,000. Your in-country representative can outline the Anvisa registration requirements and the BGMP certification process, as well as help select local in-metro and/or Anatel certifiers, if needed. After obtaining Anvisa approval, ongoing costs payable to the in-country representative include an annual fee, generating letters of importation for distributors, processing modifications, and post-market surveillance, PMS, and vigilance follow-up. For Class 1, 2 products, a budget of $1,000 to $2,000 per year per product should be sufficient to cover these activities, with the exception of large-scale vigilance activities. For Class 3, IV products, $1,500 to $3,000 per year per product should be budgeted for. Ongoing renewal and maintenance costs need to be paid to in-metro or Anatel certifiers when applicable, estimated at $1,000 per certificate. For Class 3, IV devices, the Anvisa BGMP fee of $13,500 needs to be paid every 2 or 4 years timelines. When all requirements are met, Class 1, 2 device dossiers can be compiled and submitted within 1 week, with approval by Anvisa expected in 30 days. Class 1, 2 notifications do not require renewals. The compilation and submission of a Class 3, IV dossier can be done in 2 weeks, with Anvisa review and approval usually within 6–12 months, depending on the device type. The BGMP certification from Anvisa can be obtained within 2 months when leveraging a medical device single audit program, MDSAP, certificate, and within 6 months when leveraging the ABIMED injunction through your in-country representative. A Class 3 IV device registration requires a renewal every 10 years. BGMP certification is valid for 2 years, extended to 4 years when leveraging MDSAP. This table outlines the regulatory requirements and associated costs for registering medical devices in Brazil. Medical device and IVD registration costs and timelines in Mexico. Mexico is the second largest country in Latin America with a population of more than 130 million. It imports more than 80% of medical devices and IVDs for domestic use. The Federal Committee for Protection from Sanitary Risks, cofepris, regulates and authorizes market access for medical devices in Mexico. Cofepris recently announced a new abbreviated regulatory equivalence pathway effective September 1, 2025. It allows manufacturers to leverage prior authorizations from the US FDA, EMA, CE marking under MDR, IVDR, MDD, or IVDD, Health Canada, Swissmedic, Anvisa, TGA, MFDS, and NMPA, as well as other IC, WHO, IMDRF, and MDSAP recognized bodies. The new equivalence pathway is intended to dramatically reduce the length of cofepris evaluations. Foreign manufacturers must appoint an in-country representative, license holder, to submit applications and coordinate communication with cofepris. Costs. When using an in-country representative, the cost to compile and submit a dossier to COFEPRIS, with government fees and translation costs included, typically ranges from $1,000 to $2,000 for LR, low-risk, devices, $3,000 to $4,000 for Class 1 devices, and between $5,000 and $7,000 per registration for Class 2, 3 devices, depending on the number of registrations. Your cost per registration typically decreases when you register multiple devices. Cofepris registrations are valid for 5 years. After obtaining cofepris approval, ongoing costs include an annual fee to the in-country representative, processing modifications, and post-market surveillance, PMS, and vigilance follow-up. A budget of $5,000 per year should be sufficient to cover these activities, with the exception of large-scale vigilance activities and when processing a high number of modifications. Registration renewal cost should not exceed more than 50% of the original registration cost. Timelines. When all dossier requirements are met, a submission to cofepris can be completed within a month. Under the new abbreviated regulatory pathway, equivalence route, cofepris has set a target review time of 30 working days. While this is a target review time, it may not be achievable in every case. This table outlines the regulatory requirements and associated costs for registering medical devices in Mexico. Medical device and IVD registration costs and timelines in Colombia. As the third largest country in Latin America, Colombia has a population of more than 50 million and imports more than 80% of medical devices and IVDs used domestically. Medical devices and IVDs are regulated by the National Food and Drug Surveillance Institute, Invima. There are 2 registration pathways for medical devices in Colombia: uncontrolled and controlled. Uncontrolled devices, which include classes I and IA, are eligible for automatic approval from Invima following submission of a registration application. Class IIB and III devices are controlled, and Invima conducts a review of your registration documentation before granting approval. Foreign manufacturers are required to appoint a local in-country representative and must identify an importer with CCAA Certificado de Capacidad de Almacenamiento y Acondicionamiento, Certificate of Storage and Conditioning Capacity, before they can register devices with Invima. The in-country representative may be able to help meet the CCAA requirement as well. Colombia's Resolution 1405 of 2022 introduced mandatory UDIDI requirements and a semantic reporting process for medical devices and IVDs, requiring registration holders to submit detailed product information via Invima's web platform. To complete the process, registration holders must provide UDIDI codes from certified agencies, secure Invima approval, submit the semantic report, and pay a fee. Costs. The overall cost of Invima device registration when working through an in-country representative is usually between $2,000 and $3,000 per registration, including government fees and translation costs, depending on the device class and how many products are being submitted. The per-device cost can decrease if you file multiple registrations at once. Following Invima approval, companies should budget for recurring expenses, such as annual payments to the in-country representative, fees for amendments or modifications, post-market surveillance and vigilance activities, and in some cases an annual CCAA charge if not managed by the importer. A budget of $5,000 annually is generally adequate to cover these activities, except for extensive vigilance requirements or frequent modifications. Renewal fees are usually no more than 50% of the original registration cost. Timelines. Class 1 and 2A devices can be prepared and filed in about 3 to 4 weeks, with Invima granting automatic approval once the dossier has been submitted. For Class 2B and 3 devices, the same preparation period applies, but regulatory review by Invima typically takes 6 to 8 months. Registrations are valid for 10 years, except for Class 3 IVDs, which must be renewed every 5 years. This table outlines the regulatory requirements and associated costs for registering medical devices in Colombia. How your local representative affects costs and timelines. Choosing the right in-country representative is one of the most important decisions you will make in a registration project. A knowledgeable and responsive in-country representative not only helps ensure compliance but also reduces the risk of delays and unnecessary expenses. When evaluating in-country representatives, consider how post-approval services and fees are structured in their contracts, as these can significantly affect long-term costs. With offices in Brazil, Mexico, and Colombia, Pure Global can be your experienced local representative in major Latin American markets. We'll help you bring devices to market quickly and efficiently.